Good day and welcome to RockIT with Chiief, conversations to take you places. I'm sure for some of our regular listeners, there may be some confusion because you can see Dan, but he's not the one welcoming you. Well, we have switched things up today. As the year comes to an end, it is only sensible that we finish off on a high note, and we thought that it may be a fun twist to interview none other than our very own RockIT host. So, how are you, Dan?
Yay, I'm super cool. It's so nice to be on the other side of the mic. How's it, Keri? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm very well, thanks. And thank you so much for allowing us to turn the tides and to interview you for a change.
It's
Dan,
such a pleasure.
You need no introduction on our platform. You are our host extraordinaire. You have moderated countless C-suite roundtables for Chiief. You became our successful host when we launched RockIT, which is our hugely popular podcast channel, and that was done in February this year. Your favorite quote is, "Life rocks if you let it," and boy, yes, do you live by this. You are an avid sportsman, surfer, hiker, lover of the bush, and together with your family, I believe that you have backpacked, hiked, cycled, or traveled most of South and Central America, Europe, and even some areas in the Arctic Circle. Wow,
That's right.
Dan.
That's right. I've been so blessed to travel, and we live in a modest house so that we can have immodest travel goals. My wife, Jackie, of 26 years, I think we've been together, her favorite obsession is going to new places. So she's
Amazing.
Really organized, and she's always planning the next adventure. And we get to go to some crazy places, and having children now, it's even better. We get to take them with us and see the world through their eyes. So we tend to go off the beaten path, but we also acknowledge that the beaten path takes you to some beautiful places. So I don't mind going first world, third world, second world. We as long as we're meeting new people and seeing new things, it
Having
really gives us a kick.
grand experiences, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Isn't that what life is all about?
Totally. And we
Life
get too,
rocks.
yeah, exactly. We get too stuck between the four walls and expectations of 2.5 kids, big house, 2 dogs, and a white picket fence. And I think there's just so much of the world out there, and especially in our survival mentality and based in South Africa, we're so worried about just what's going on around us that it's very difficult to lift our heads and go. And I must admit, I fell into that during COVID. Even before that, I was in quite a corporate environment, and I was just on a bit of a treadmill, and I'd forgotten the joy of just being free. So I believe in freedom quite a bit, freedom of time. And that comes through having skills that people want to pay for, because you need money in today's world in order to travel and in order to be free. So it's kind of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, if I could, I would definitely be doing more traveling. As you say, just meeting the people and getting to experience life. Yeah. Okay, well, now that we know a little bit more about you, let's get down to business while we're here. Okay, so my first question is, what do you enjoy the most about being the host of our RockIT podcast?
I love meeting new people. I think everybody's got a story, and I really like to hear their story. If we can't travel, then we should travel through other people's stories. I like engaging with people, and I enjoy seeing what motivates them to be in their lane of gifting. So if we're doing a corporate podcast that's paid for, then, why is that person working for X, Y, and Z company? And what is it that they are passionate about within those confines? If it's a general guest, usually we get someone that's interesting and on fire for something. So why are they changing the world with it? Why have they taken the knocks? I always love knowing what motivates people. When I run a marathon and I see people running for the first time, I always ask them, why do they do it? And then sit back and listen. And people love sharing that. They love sharing their own stories, and I like to listen to them. I know I talk a lot, but I really enjoy being quiet and just giving them a place to talk and to share.
That's where you learn the most, eh? When you sit back and you actually listen. You're right. But, okay, well, this leads me into my next question. Of our episodes, which did you enjoy the most, and which one would you recommend to others to watch?
It's quite a difficult question to answer because they've been very different. I mean, we've had motivational people, and we've had industry leads, and we've had adventurers, and we've had sports people, and we've had sports journalists, and so it's quite. There's a lot of learning to be done through all of them. And what I have learned in the last kind of 10 months is the questions, even if I ask the same question, we can go to very, very different places. So I would recommend, wherever you are, just browse through the episodes and have a look. The one
what speaks to you, maybe.
Yeah, the one that personally speaks to me, I'm actually looking at his book, is I may have a man crush on Richard Mulholland. And I just love the fact that presentations don't have to be boring. So I would definitely look up that one and look at Missing Link. If you are in corporate and you want to improve your way of speaking and your way of engaging with audiences, that one was just filled with practical stuff. They just, all of them have given me something. I have struggled once or twice just learning about getting guests and who's going to be interesting. For what's interesting for me is not necessarily interesting for everybody. Kind of, you've got to be discerning on your listening time, but you never know what nuggets you get out there. So yeah, they've all been really cool.
I think for me personally, the episode with the Lungelo youth development with Miriam Lambu was very eye-opening. And it just goes to show that any small amount of kindness and help within the community can also go a long way. And I found that this was a slight running trend with some of our podcasts, just people helping within their communities or doing something to help create awareness, which is awesome. Like you say, besides the 9-to-5 business, that was just a nice, as you say, nugget for me personally.
And we went and spent a week with Mary and just lived at Lungelo and helped. And it wasn't me, it was my daughter was doing community service. And the sheer volume of stuff that Mary gets through with no outside help from any organization, as in public sector organization in South Africa, is quite astounding. She is such a driven woman. She's such a driven leader, and the wisdom just drips from her.
And she just makes it happen. That's what I also noticed.
We did, the last one we did was also about, well, we'll see it released in a couple of weeks, but just about mentoring young men. And I had a little bit of a cry through that one. And I remember our episode on child trafficking, that people working to prevent this human slavery and really spending time with them was quite emotional. Having two daughters, that just kicks you in the chest. And that there are people from around the world that are sponsoring amazing humans to come out here to South Africa and work in Africa to prevent the scourge of human trafficking. It hit me quite hard. I don't think I was the greatest interviewer for that particular one because I cried too much, but it was still a really interesting episode for me. Yeah.
But I think it's also great to bring things like that, not only to our platform, but to any platform, to actually make people aware that this kind of thing is happening. So why should people set reminders to watch or listen to our RockIT podcast? You may have slightly answered that already.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of like a lucky packet. And what I try and do is make it relevant to somebody who's sitting in the IT department or the BA department in a town, and someone who's driving to work. We're not out there to be controversial. I'm not out to shock anyone. That isn't what it's about. But I would like to learn something during that time, and hopefully someone if you enjoy the conversation, my hope is that one nugget from each episode, whether it's a book, podcast, a learning, a style, resonates with you, and you can move forward, whether it's a motivational speaker like an adventurer, or a sports person who we admire, one discipline that they have instilled, or one habit that they have that you can take away and can apply in your life. That would be brilliant. If our podcast is moving people, changing their behavior in one slight way, listen for each episode. That's why.
Well, that leads me to my next question. What life lessons did you learn through this year, through RockIT?
That's the reason people study journalism, is to do it well. And I don't think I'm anywhere near where some of these great interviewers are. So I've been watching a lot of interviews and watching how people interview and how they ask open-ended questions and closed questions, and the power of questions. So I've learned more that I can use in my sales life and in my business life just through being an interviewer. And I think the difficulty is because I'm not a techie. Like every episode, I'm not taking a new phone and unpacking a phone, and that just doesn't interest me. That would be easier because we could be better. But the way the freedom that I've got from the podcast is I have to go and find guests, and we have to then set up all the questions, and I do all the questions myself, and trying to keep it fresh and relevant. I must admit I was quite tired at the end of this, because you're doing it in your own time and you're putting it together, and that freshness needs to come back. I do think that you need to approach it with energy. That being said, we interviewed a gentleman who's cycling around the world, and I was really at a low point, and my questions went out the window, and we just spoke about mental health and mental wellness, and he was amazing. And so I get a lot from it on that side, and I've learned that you can always learn from someone if you're listening to them.
You're 100% right. Yeah. So have you received any feedback from our RockIT podcast viewers, and what has some of it been?
Yes. Very close to home said that it was a cuck episode, and I kept asking the same questions. Really good feedback on how badly I've done.
No.
And then I've also had some positive ones where it's just like, wow, that really spoke to me. And I've got a friend, Carol, who is a religious listener, and she gives me such constructive advice on how to improve it and that. But it is kind of like throwing it out into the universe, and I think you've got to carry on before you start getting hate mail or fan mail. I don't think I've earned the creds yet. I think just appreciating our listeners is awesome. And if they do give any feedback, it's usually in passing or over a beer or whatever. I haven't heard anything from out of Mongolia or Finland or, and that's the objective. One of my goals, one of my life goals is to do a talk to X thousand people, and when they're there and live. So this is all prep for that. I'd love to do that, or a TED talk or something. And when the story comes, I think the experience from RockIT will just tee me up for it. So
absolutely, yes. So what do you think sets RockIT Podcast apart from others?
I think the production team is really good. It's a quality product. And I think because we are based in South Africa and we're not funded by a big engine, we have relative independence. And that, if we're paid to do a podcast, I have to toe a certain party line. And at the moment, nobody pays us. So, we can ask whatever we want, and that's really, really empowering. And
Mm.
we can go down any discussions, and that's why when we end the podcast and we've got it on the website, and that we're always asking for feedback or topics or whatever, so we can talk about anything. And really it comes down to, well, you and me, are we interested in the guest or not? You know, if, we've had a couple of people approach us and I've said to you, nah, that's just going to be boring. We don't want to do that. We really, if I'm interested in talking to them, then I want to talk to them, and that's quite nice. Not generally ambivalent towards Daniel. You either like me or don't like me. You know, ambivalence is probably the worst thing. And if you like where we're going and you enjoy the questions that we're asking, we interviewed Gigi Alcock, a really interesting dude, and he's doing amazing things in the township economy and unlocking so much stuff. I would say that I would love to be fluent in Zulu, Sotho, Tswana, and do a podcast in a local African language.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, but I'm just cock. So I'm just cock.
So that also ties into my next question. How do you self-educate? What podcasts, newspapers, books, etc. do you watch? You see how I copied you there.
Yeah, I like that one. Well, at the moment I'm reading Here Be Dragons for about the 95th time. I listened to a couple of really interesting podcasts. Like, I absolutely love the BBC's Daily Summary. I enjoy hearing about what's going on in the news, and the Global News podcast is 30 minutes. It just gets me in there, and it gives me a really good overview of tech, general news, the world itself, and how much chaos is going on. I listened to another one, Sparks, which is all about creativity, and it's about how to get your creativity back and where. And they interview, like the writers for Pixar and writers for. So I enjoy that, and I tend to listen to a huge amount of audiobooks. The narrators in there give me good hints. We talk about cadence, and we talk about tonality of the way we speak in the language and that. And then I cheat because I train sales managers online. That gives you a good exposure to the world and to books that they are reading. But like, if 100% of my reading had to be broken up, my reading from a work perspective would probably be about 30%. The rest is zombies.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I would never have guessed that. Okay, so what new technologies have caught your attention this year, and why?
You mentioned facilitation earlier, and we facilitate a number of roundtables, and that's been quite insightful. If we do 10 of those, 8 of them are all about security, and just the immense strides that the baddies have taken in security, and how the world is keeping up with that has been, that's been a revelation for me. And what these corporates are doing, and security on almost on a continental scale, is quite interesting and intriguing. And I'm loving all the technology that's coming out that's so plug and play, rapid to deploy, and allows people to continue with their operational realities. So we don't have to focus on security. We've got a tech partner that's doing that. We can concentrate on our customer. And that's been very good. And then this whole digital identity, you would know that with my move next year, digital identity and confirming Keri is who Keri says she is has been fascinating. And how we are orchestrating that and pulling it all together so we can one day live in a passwordless world. That's very exciting. Just from a communications perspective, there's been some really interesting enhancements in our everyday platforms. And the world's come out of a lockdown and we're all face to face, but we are selling effectively using channels like we're using now on Teams. And Teams and Zoom and all these other ways of getting together has been super. And what fascinates me is the low level of understanding that people have. No, we don't use 10% of the power of these tools.
Oh yeah.
To collaborate.
What's out there is far beyond, I think, what us as the laymen, the ones in the background, like we have actually no idea what's going on in the technology world out there. It's fascinating.
So that's it.
Yeah. Dan, if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Precognition.
Okay.
When you talk as much as I do, or precognition or a time wrap of being able to go back 3 minutes in time. I think I saw that in a cool program. Because my mouth quite often operates without my brain engaged, and I unintentionally hurt people by things that I say or really piss people off or whatever. And if I had a way of rewinding that would be awesome. Precognition, I'd make financial bets, and then I'd have more money and I could travel more. So time is a big thing for me. So
yeah,
those would be
isn't
my
it for
superpowers.
isn't it for everybody? Hey, just not enough time. And my final question to you: what is the one question that you would have liked me to ask you?
You cheat, man. That's my question. Sure, I love that question.
How could I not?
Yeah, I love that question from a perspective of I'm not really arrogant enough to think that I know people after a 30-minute chat. And when you ask them that question, just the lights go on and they say, hey, shit, I don't know about that. And yeah, maybe so 2023, what's in store for Dan?
There you go. So what's in store for you next year, Dan?
Yeah, so the gig economy has just got more serious, and I'm joining an organization as CRO, so Chief Revenue Officer and Client Success, and that's very exciting for me. I've been, I had a company for 14 years. We sold into a big corporate. There was so many lessons that I learned there on who I am and how I am. There was so much arrogance going on, and that certainly got beaten out of me, not by anything on their side, just on my own side. And my ego took a tremendous knock in the next 2 years. You think you can just step into these next roles, and it's taken me a while to have the confidence to step forward and say, yes, I'm here and I can go with it. So I am going with a bag full of trepidation into a new adventure, just because the expectations are quite high, but it'll allow me to springboard into a huge future. And I'm so excited about that. And I'm excited to meet new people. Maybe a couple of international guests would be fantastic. I'd love to start interviewing more dynamic Black leaders. I don't think I've done that any justice in the last 6 months, just looking at my own base and where people are. So that'll be cool for 2023. And I would love to run 100-miler. I think that would be cool.
That's amazing. That would be amazing.
I do have a kid, my oldest, going through grade 12 next year. So I think I'm going to put the running in the back burner for now. So yeah, that's my 2023 in a wrap. Thanks.
Sounds
Keri.
exciting. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, Dan, I know that we're a little bit short on time. So I just want to thank you so much again for letting me interview you. It really has been great. Do you want to close out the final episode of our RockIT Podcast?
I would love that. That'd be so cool. Thanks for listening to us at RockIT. My name is Daniel Robus. I'm your host, co-host with Keri, and I hope you have a Life Rocks day at the Rocks if you let it. From me And Keri, goodbye.
Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Ciao, Keri.